Oh, and I can only be here till 9:30 because I have an air district meeting at 9:30, but we'll probably be done with the presentation from Health Services by 9:30, I would imagine.
Yes, we'll be fast.
Right.
Is everybody ready? Perfect. I see yeses, and I will start the meeting. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, April 28, 2022. And I call to order the West County Mayors and Supervisors Association, the regular meeting. First item on the agenda will be the roll call and the Pledge of Allegiance and call to order. Can you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and our moment of silence, please? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Justice. Thank you, everybody. Madam, item number 1, roll call and self-introductions. Do we have anybody here who's joining us today who has not been introduced in the past? Beside the presenters, I don't think anybody is new, and then we'll let them introduce themselves and we'll do the presentation. Then we'll move on to item number 2, which is communication from members of the public. Madam City Clerk, good morning. Do we have anybody who wishes to talk from the public, either on Zoom or in person, please?
Good morning, Mayor. It looks like we have no public speakers.
If this is the case, I'm going to close item number 2 and move on to item number 3, which is the presentation and reports. And item 3.8, today we have a Contra Costa County Health Services Department update on housing and homelessness. And we have this morning Lavona Martin, who is the Deputy Director of Health Services, and Christy Saxon, Director of Health, Housing and Homeless Services. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. We're really thrilled.
Thank you for being with us. Please go ahead with your presentation. Do you think 15 minutes would be enough?
I do.
Perfect. I'll give you 15 minutes. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for your invitation today. As I've been introduced, my name is Christy Saxton, and I am the Director of Health, Housing, and Homeless Services. And I'm here today with Lavona Martin, who's the Deputy Director of Health Services, who right before me had the role of Director of H3. Next slide, please. So this is what my daughter calls the octopus slide. And I think the major thing, the big takeaway here is to show the incredible breadth of services that our department helps support for the entire county. As you will see, we have 4 main areas that we focus on: prevention and diversion. This is really trying to help temporary shelter. So this could be interim shelter and emergency shelter, warming centers, so on. Supportive services that can be anything from receiving food and clothing to financial assistance to housing navigation. And then of course, supportive housing, which includes rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. And for us, the really important here is that there are 3 ways in which within our county to access any of these services. And our department has worked really hard with our partners to ensure that there really is no wrong door should someone be out there seeking need and services, that they can access any one of these through the access points. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So call, care, and core are our 3 access points. Next slide. So calling, 211 is our partner here, and we're really happy with their support. They're available 24 hours, 7 days a week, and anyone can call them. Obviously, they support more than just folks that are experiencing some type of housing crisis. But for the purposes of this, they are one of our main partners. Another area is our care centers. And we have 2 care centers in the county, and both of them are actually located in West County. One is in Walnut Creek and one is in Richmond. And these are daytime.
One of those is central and one is west. You said.
Sorry, you're right. Sorry about that.
Not in East County. There's not an East County.
There's not in East County. Good news is though, anyone can access them, so you don't have to be in central. Thank you. That is what I meant to say. My early morning fumble. And so these are open in the daytime. They're drop-in centers where folks can receive food, a little bit of support. And again, this is a way for them to access further resources. And then we have our core team. And this is our mobile outreach team that is run through H3, and it is countywide 7 days a week. You can get in touch with them directly through 211 by pressing 3. And this is really our support for our folks who are unsheltered and literally homeless. I'll go more into our core teams on the next slide, please. Oh, next slide. Thank you. So these are all of our core teams throughout the county. So we have, as you'll see, the top, we have 3 countywide teams, A, B, and C. Team B is located for West County. So even though it says countywide, we still try to focus on the variety of regions within the county. And these are all of the cities that we have been partnering with, predominantly through our police departments and beyond. The good news is, so we have a core team that supports Richmond and San Pablo, and along with the city of Richmond, who was just awarded, which I'll talk about briefly, an encampment resolution grant, the second largest in the state. We are partnering with the city of Richmond to establish a second core team that will be specific to supporting to abate and stably house everyone at the Castro encampment. And so we are, as we speak right now, hiring up that team. And we already have boots on the ground in that encampment, but it will not pull from Richmond San Pablo core team. We were really clear about that. And the city of Richmond really supported that effort to ensure that we have a dedicated core team to that encampment. And then our other core teams are definitely meeting the needs countywide as well. So we have dedicated teams for populations such as folks staying around BART stations in creeks. And we have a team right now that is supporting directly our families through CalWorks, folks who have disabilities, and then we have a transition-aged youth team. These are real specialty teams that are staffed with people who have subject matter expertise in those areas and really focus on those populations. And again, those are all county-wide, so they can be called at any time to meet that need.
Just other cities in West County, like, Pinole, El Cerrito, let folks know which core team covers those areas.
Team B. And then if you have any specialized with our so Bark Creek's families, disabled or transition-aged youth. So those are the teams that would be triaged to go out directly. Next slide, please. So a couple of our accomplishments over the last year. Next slide. One is our Brookside shelter. Now, this was a shelter that in the beginning months of the pandemic had to shut down, as did everyone, had to depopulate all of their emergency shelters. So we took that time and that opportunity to reimagine all of our shelters within the county. But here in West County, this is our Brookside shelter. And as you will see now, they are what we call sleep stations. What we heard overwhelmingly from our constituents and consumers is that folks were not coming in or not wanting to come into shelters for a variety of reasons. One being the lack of privacy. And some others were, couples would be split up, people couldn't bring their pets in, so on and so forth. So we're happy to report Brookside is back open, and it's beautiful. If anyone wants a tour, let us know, but they all have their own sleep stations. I'm also really happy to report that we reconfiguring our outdoor area to allow pets. We were able to get a grant out in our Concord shelter last year that has created a little pocket park, is what they call it, and some kennels for our pets. Has really allowed folks to come in with security, knowing they could bring their support animals with them. Good news is we've scored a perfect score on that grant. So we imagine, we have not gotten the award yet, but we do imagine and expect that award to be coming soon. And it will be creating an entire outdoor living space for anyone living at the shelter. So people with and without pets will both be able to enjoy that space. So we're really excited about that newest revelation that just happened last week. So congratulations to my team on that. Next slide. Second, already stated, the city of Richmond put in for an encampment resolution. This is funding through the state. And we were with them in supporting them on that proposal every step of the way. Fortunately for us, we all understand it's going to take all of us together to do it. And Richmond received the second highest grant in the state. And definitely kudos to the staff out there. They are working on hiring up so we can really launch this project, and it will be to folks living at the Castro encampment, excuse me, and get them housed, stably housed over the next 2 years. So congratulations to the team out there in Richmond. We will are right now hiring a second core team to support those efforts and really supporting the staff on that project. This is something that I know is near and dear to Supervisor Joya's heart as well as mine, is the newly named El Portal Place. This is an old AT&T call center, among other uses over the years, that will be we're in the process right now of rehabilitating to turn into 54 units of permanent supportive housing. And some of those units will be able to house more than one person, so two folks if needed. And it is an exciting project as we are partnering with a developer who had owned the project. We are putting in for a home key application in September to support this project. We've had great support along the way. Done a lot of community outreach and working with the police department and a lot of folks hand in glove to get this project off the ground. We're really, really excited about it. We have weekly meetings about the project, and we hope to be leasing up this housing by July 2023. So not that far off. And again, like I said, we plan to put in an application for home key, which is state funding for the purpose and acquisition of this project. And some of our other accomplishments, we had close to 4,000 people enter our system of care during the pandemic. Of that, 44% of those people exited homelessness into permanent supportive housing. So whether that was rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, stably housed with friends and family. We're also very pleased about a series of equity trainings that we did. We also did an equity evaluation of our continuum of care and system. which was terribly exciting. We have a lot of recommendations and solutions that have come out of that. We have created an implementation working group who are now meeting weekly to figure out how to quickly make some of the changes to our system and what are some of the longer term solutions and strategies that we want to employ to making our system that much more equitable. And then since the pandemic, our system has supported over 10,000 tests and over 11,000 vaccines administered to folks who have been experiencing homelessness. Really proud of our partnership with Healthcare for the Homeless and our other mobile teams and vaccination sites and testing sites and to truly meet the needs of our most vulnerable community members. Next.
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate that. I believe I am familiar with most of. To just introduce myself once again, my name is Lavana Martin. I am a Deputy Director with the Health Department, previously the Director of Health, Housing, and Homeless Services. And really, I wanted to take some time to cover Measure X as I was more involved in Measure X before Christy came on. And so I wanted to, it's my privilege to share with you some of the initiatives. So I think first and foremost, everyone already knows about Measure X, but we're really excited. It's really meaningful to now have an established fund specifically for health and human services as well as safety. And we heard loud and clear from the community housing was important and really excited to bring to you some of the initiatives that were funded. Next slide, please. So you heard a little bit about the El Portal Place, and I really do want to acknowledge the City of San Pablo for partnering so closely with the county to bring this dream to fruition. So one of the opportunities that we have with Measure X is to bring additional permanent supportive housing into our community. Many and most of the funding that comes to provide housing is really from federal government, or excuse me, state government. And oftentimes we need other resources to really make these projects work. Sometimes those dollars are needed for matching those state dollars or federal funds that might be going to the project to provide operating support or services support. And we're really excited to have Measure X dollars to actually be matching funds for some of our projects. As Christy has stated, we will be applying for state home key dollars to actually purchase and acquire the El Portal Place once it's built. Oftentimes you score better when you're bringing dollars to the table. And so it is exciting to actually have some dollars locally to match. And so we have two projects that we brought before the Board of Supervisors that we'd like to apply for home key dollars and then use state Measure X funding as match. I won't cover El Portal Place as Christy's already done that, but there's also one of the things that we always want to think about is reusing surplus property or land. And one of the opportunities that we have, which we're still fleshing out, we've just completed a feasibility study, is what can we do with the old Brookside Head Start building that is next to our Brookside shelter, which has been vacated by our Head Start partners over at EHSD. It's still being used right now for some commercial kitchen use, but what do we envision there? And it's a fantastic 18,000 square foot building. Is this a potential home key project? And what are the dollars that we can bring to the table?
And you
to help
should say,
make that.
just to be clear for folks, it's in North Richmond. As you said, it's adjacent to the Parkside Shelter, so it's in North Richmond. And that would be an additional, how many units?
30 units.
Right, that's where you get the 84.
Yes.
54 from the San Pablo site and 30 from this, right?
And as I was saying earlier, you know, this is when we envision this, we are really talking about permanent solutions. And so it's really exciting to think about bringing on an additional 84 units into the community, specifically in West Contra Costa County, to support the growing number of individuals who are experiencing homelessness throughout our county. Next slide, please. Measure X also really allowed us to think a little differently. And actually, let me back up. I don't think it's about thinking differently. It's about bringing what we know has worked in other communities into Contra Costa. And the idea of bringing a local housing trust that is really dedicated, right, to supporting the building of permanent housing for people at the lowest levels of our area median income is critical. And so we are excited that through Measure X, we can now establish a fund, and it will be a multi-year commitment at $12 million a year, 10 million for the first year, but 12 million subsequent years. And we will be prioritizing the of permanent housing, including permanent supportive housing for individuals in our community. In addition, though, we really wanted to make sure that we were building out this local housing trust so that it's flexible enough to meet the additional needs. We want to make sure that we're looking at the use of our county surplus land to build additional housing and services, whether that includes interim housing, emergency housing. We want to make sure that we are bringing technical assistance to providers that in order for them to build capacity for the developers as well as the service providers to expand. We want to make sure that we are thinking about supportive services that are needed to maintain housing, as well as, making sure that we're preserving any current affordable housing that's available. And then also looking, importantly, as we've been impacted so heavily by the pandemic, really, what does prevention and legal support and rental assistance look like, and how potentially can these dollars be used to support those really critical needs? So how do we bring this to life? Well, as you can imagine, next slide, please. This is most certainly, looks like this most certainly bringing the vision to life is critical. And it's a big step. The great thing is we have a ton of support. The Local Housing Trust is a collaborative effort with Department of Conservation Development taking the lead role in hosting the Local Housing Trust, along with support from H3 as committed partners, as well as our Housing Authority, to really think about how we best can utilize these dollars and provide our subject matter expertise as we develop that. But one of the things that we realized really early on is that this is new for all of us. So one of our priorities is really to start educating ourselves, right? What does this look like? What does it look like in other communities that look like ours, perhaps not look like ours, but had great impact? So we are taking time to educate ourselves. We are meeting regularly. We're bringing in subject matter experts to have discussions with us. One of the things that we also recognize is this is a big lift, and we're excited about it, and we need dedicated support in order to help us do that. So we have hired some project management support to help just make sure that we are setting some metrics, setting some timelines, making sure we're staying on target and task so that we can make sure we're prioritizing our next steps, which continues to be educating ourselves, but also looking at what does an outreach plan look like? What do we, to our developers, to community, so that we can make sure we are using the dollars in the way that is needed most, and developing a strategic plan long-term for these dollars, a strategic use plan. So we are still working through that, but excited about what that will yield. That we have timelines. We really want to make sure that we start putting these dollars out to the community and putting them to use to build the housing that we need in our community. Finally, if there are additional questions that you might have for us, please, you can reach out. This next slide, and that's in your packet, but you can always reach out to us. We still obviously are in the pandemic, so we still have our coronavirus information on our website. So please, you feel free to take a look at that. But anytime that you need to reach Health, Housing, and Homeless Services, you can log on, to our website, but also we'll make sure that Ms. Saxton's information is available to you as well.
And I wanted to make a closing comment on the presentation, just from a policy perspective. I think the Board of Supervisors' commitment to really address permanent supportive housing is reflected through our $12 million per year investment. The largest local fund, at least. We still need to tap into state and federal dollars. I mean, I think all of you know there's challenges in getting unhoused people off the street and into services. And I think what we've seen is the need to create more individual spaces for people to live in, whether it is changing the congregate housing situation of the Brookside shelter into individual sleeping rooms, to building more individual permanent housing, to renting and buying hotels with individual rooms, and that people who are unhoused are more likely to go into housing and off the street if there's an individual room they could stay in. So I just wanted to know, I mean, that remains, I think, the gold standard of we need dozens of the permanent housing sites like what we just had permitted in San Pablo and are looking at for the Brookside shelter, the Brookside former child care center. More housing dedicated to people previously homeless with supportive services. So I just wanted to add that, which hence our $12 million per year investment. Over the life of that measure, which is 20 years, that's a significant amount of money, but we would hope to leverage that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Before I go to question quickly, can I have a roll call, Madam City Clerk? I forgot about that.
Mayor Salimi,
Here.
Mayor Bailey. I'll note for the record that we have Vice Mayor Walker Griffin on the line. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, you're in present.
Thank you. Supervisor Joya,
Here.
Mayor Xavier.
Button on mute.
Thank you, Mayor Butt,
Here.
and Supervisor Glover. I'll note for the record is not here. We do have Mr. Aliano present in person with us today, representing his office.
Thank you very much. I will turn it then to
Excuse me, Mayor Quinto's here as well from El Cerrito. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will turn it then to Mayor Butt. Please go ahead with the question, sir.
Just call on me.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. And I have to say I agree with Supervisor Joya, who said that ultimately the gold standard is to get people into housing. This was a very optimistic presentation, but the bottom line is that what we're doing now is just not working. It's an absolutely colossal failure. And some of the things I've learned that you've heard today, and you've heard it from John Joya, is that one of the big problems we have is that people in these homeless camps, a lot of them will not go to shelters. And the only way short of of physically hauling them to a shelter and locking them in it is to offer them housing, like an apartment. And almost all of them will go to an apartment if you offer them an apartment. The problem is that in West County, apartments, even studio apartments, cost somewhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a year. So if you want to get somebody out of a camp, you got to find an apartment for them, and you got to find $15,000 or $20,000. I started a program with some money I had in the mayor's community fund that I've raised over the last several years. And since my term is up, I didn't want to leave that money for somebody else to spend. I want to do it myself. So what we started doing was looking for high priority people in our homeless camps, and using that money to actually get them an apartment. And we concentrated on families, and we found a couple of things going on. We found that there were actually families with children, mainly single mothers with children in our homeless camps, particularly the RV camps. And so we started looking to relocate them. We found in some cases there were single mothers in those camps whose children had been taken away from them by social services because they did not have housing. And we were able to arrange in a couple of situations where the court would willing to reunite the children with the mother if the mother found housing. And they don't look at a shelter as being housing. So if you want to bring the family back together, you got to find them an apartment somewhere. So we figured that out, and we were able to make that work. One of the big brick walls we came up against is the fact that landlords, particularly in Richmond, since it has rent control and just cause, landlords are extremely resistant to renting to people who are not employed, or they're underemployed, or maybe they work the gig economy and they can't show records of being employed, and also people who've been homeless and so on and so on. So in one instance, we actually paid a landlord. We got a landlord to agree to take in a single mom and a kid. And we paid over $20,000 up front for a year's rent. It was all set to go. Mom was all ready to move in, and the department said, no, we can't do it. That the prospective tenant cannot produce a W-2 form showing that she had a job during the last year. And I'm sorry, we just can't waive our rules. So what we're finding is that even though you're willing to pay finding that landlords won't rent to previously homeless people. So one thing I've done is I introduced an ordinance revision last week that would make it illegal in the city of Richmond to deny a tenant occupancy for any of the reasons that they're not employed, that they're unemployed, that they can't produce employment records, that they've been homeless, things like that. And I don't know how it's going to go. It was kind of interesting that my super progressive colleagues on the city council actually resisted that. But we'll see how that goes.
I have a question of just as you're doing that. You're a charter city and have rent control. Our understanding is general law cities and counties cannot do that because there's prevented by state law governs the tenancy. So I don't know if you have anything further to add on that, but I think general law cities and counties can't do that, and you may be in a unique position as a charter city.
Well, what I tried to do, we have an ordinance our council adopted last year that made it illegal for a landlord to request information about prior incarceration when considering a tenant. And so I thought I would just piggyback onto that. So I don't know, that's in progress. I think the city attorney, I think, believes we can do it.
Right, but I think it's because you're a charter city. I think we can't because we've looked into various things.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, all of the locate have been either in other cities or in the county, because I got to tell you, Richmond landlords are just, I mean, they've just had it. I mean, if you're not a tenant that is a gold standard, they won't even talk to you. And so that's one of the downsides of rent control. So, so we've got that issue to come up with. Now, the last thing I want to say is that in my opinion, the only way we in California are going to go from having 160,000 homeless people to having no homeless people is to adopt some kind of a program that's kind of like Section 8, where we actually subsidize housing for people. And if you do the math, you've heard me say this before, you take 160,000 people times the cost, the average cost of an apartment in California, and it comes out to about $1 billion a year. And that's less than 1% of the California General Fund budget. My point being that California can actually afford to house all of our unhoused people. We just don't have the political will to do it. And that's one thing I keep asking people for, is to support this. Go help me convince your legislators and your governor, our governor, that this is what we need to do. We need to come up with a program to actually subsidize housing for people. Otherwise, can't, I give the county a lot of credit for building 84 units of extremely, low income housing. Is barely going to dent our homeless population. Solve it. I mean, it's in the right direction, but it's not a solution. And then you've got to operate it after. Building these things is only the first step. Then you got to provide an operating subsidy indefinitely. And I haven't heard anybody say where that's going to come from. Maybe that's part of the 12 million Measure X money. And then finally, I see my own city just totally wasting money. We allocated $1.5 million last year for serving the homeless population. And then we got that grant for 4.8. Well, half of that 4.8 is going to serving people that are still out on the streets. It's going for things like showers and porta potties and cleanups. And almost all of the 1.5 million the city spent went for things like cleanups and showers and porta potties and that kind of thing. Folks, that is not a solution. That is an incredible waste of money. For the $1.5 million, we could have 100 people in apartments for a year. For $4.8 million, they could put 240 people in apartments for a year. And also gave $1 million to the Richmond Rapid Response Fund, $1 million to the Richmond Rapid Response Fund. They could have put 50 people in apartments for that. You know what they're spending the money on? They're spending the money on capacity building. They want to build the Richmond Rapid Response Fund into yet another institution. So I'm very unhappy about a lot of these, and I think the housing first solution is what this state has to pursue. We just got to find the money to to build and pay for housing for people like a Section 8 program. Otherwise, we're going to be doing this forever. So sorry for rambling so long, but that's my take on it.
Thank you, Mayor Butt. I just want to remind that Supervisor Joya will be leaving us in 20 minutes. So I would like to keep the comments short enough for Supervisor Joya to hear them all, and as well as the public comments. Mayor Quinto, please go ahead. It's 9:10. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Salimi. I agree with many things that Mayor Tom Butt said, including making sure that cities participate in, and our landlords participate in Section 8 housing. And in El Cerrito, we have tried to promote that with our mom and pop landlords, which are the majority of El Cerrito. And unfortunately, we have landlords that don't want to participate in that for some reason. So that's part of my frustration in dealing with Section 8. It would be great to have more of that, and I definitely support that. I also want to say thank you to Lavonna Martin and also to Christy for this presentation. And this is what I would like. I would love to have a presentation too for Lavonna and to Christy to speak at a future council meeting in El Cerrito, because most residents and frankly, most elected officials do not know anything about this program or Measure X. So I look forward to working with both of you and to make sure that our residents know exactly the good work that you are doing right now. With the county is, back in 2018, we had a presentation at the last, when I was mayor at the West County Mayor's Conference, speaking about this beautiful project, which was stackable crates at the former Richmond Health Center right next door there. 4 years have passed and nothing is there yet. So I appreciate what Supervisor Joya and our county supervisors are doing to make sure that we have funding for this, such as that $12 million that hopefully will go to housing, because we're not seeing it here. We're just not. El Cerrito is one of the few cities building housing for all. And I'd like to see the other cities step up. So I'm very proud to see my colleagues in Pinole and San Pablo work with the county to get this done. But this is not just El Cerrito's problem. And the 14 people that we have in El Cerrito who we see on the street, we all know them by their first and last names. We have thick files on them. These people refuse services. Now we have our residents saying that we're not doing a damn thing, but we are. These are the chronically mentally ill, and many of them have addiction problems, and we want to help them. And our crew in El Cerrito City Hall and fire police working with the county and the core group, they're doing what they can. But this is a regional problem, and I know Supervisor Joya gets that. I did show Congressman Garamendi, many of us were with him when we took a tour of nonprofits. So proud of the work that Rita Xavier is doing with the Lau Foundation, and we spoke to GRIP. What I realized speaking to these two groups, nonprofits don't speak to each other. They're competing for the same homeless client. So I'm wondering where are the checks and balances on this? Why are there so many nonprofits dealing with this? And still, I don't see anything getting done in my city with the 14 chronically homeless people. I just want to make sure that there are checks and balances in the future, making sure that the nonprofits work together and they're not duplicating services, because I have a feeling that is happening right now. And then to have more nonprofits that want to sign on to this, I agree with Tom, but this is a waste of money. So so in the future, making sure that our nonprofits are reputable, do the work, do the paperwork as well, to find out that nonprofits are drowning in paperwork, and to see GRIP lose their clients that were living at the hotel. that was a sad thing to hear about. And these nonprofits are drowning with paperwork. They need to work together because I am sure they're working with the same people the other nonprofits are. I spoke to Long Life Medical and they deal with the homeless as well. They agree with me. I spoke to them. They work in El Cerrito, Albany, Kensington. And they work with the same people the folks in El Cerrito do and the people at BART do. So we are truly duplicating services. And I want to make sure that we all speak to each other, that we're not, doing the same thing that the other 4 nonprofits are doing, because this is what I truly see. Thank you.
Thank you. I will then move on to Mayor Xavier, but I just want to let you know that the city of Pinole has approved within the last 6 months over 220 affordable housing. And this is something they're working with the county as a team, and it's a team effort. It's not just one city. It's work that has been done for many years, and they're just here to push the paperwork, but it's a team effort. Mayor Xavier, please go ahead.
Yes, actually, before I start, I would like to ask, could the slide please be taken down? Because I lost my internet code because of that slide being up there. Thank you. So I had to get back on. I would like to just say a little something about Lao Family Community Development. We've worked with Contra Costa County on various projects like workforce development and such. And I would like to state that Lao Family, and I'm on the board of directors, is successful in Alameda County with housing for the homeless, permanent housing. And I would hope that more housing in Contra Costa County could be developed through Lao Family, because we offer wraparound services, everything from employment and getting the people back on their feet with mental health help and so on, so that they don't become homeless again. Housing, maybe move from the transitional housing into a totally permanent situation. And we've been doing that with the County of Alameda. We have contracts with them for that specific.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to Mayor Butt. You have your hand raised, sir. And then I'll go back to the public. Please go ahead, Mayor Butt. No question. So do you have any member of the public who wish to talk to this morning, please, Madam City Clerk?
We have one hand up in the attendee side. That's Charlotte Sullivan.
Ms. Sullivan, good morning. Please go ahead. Her hands went down. I'm not sure if she still wants to talk.
Here she comes. She's
Okay, perfect.
yeah, thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really informative. I happen to be a Section 8 landlord, and I wanted to speak about Mayor Quinto's, just kind of piggyback on what he said. I think there's a lot of landlords who either don't know about Section 8, or there's some sort of misunderstanding about what Section 8 really provides. But to Mayor Butt's point, there is subsidies that exist. It's just how many landlords are participating in the program. Section 8 is such a wonderful program. I know my mom utilized it in the city of El Cerrito when we were kids. And it was really wonderful. It allowed her as a single mom to have housing for her 2 children. And I think that it was just very challenging even then for landlords to participate. She would always have to incentivize them by saying, hey, I'll put that extra money down or something like that, like outside of Section 8. So I do think there are some issues with the subsidy programs and a lot of what Mayor Quinto said about duplicate services. But we already have these really wonderful subsidy programs. It's just how do you get landlords to participate? How can you get more people at the table so that more of the unhoused can really find the services that they're looking for? Mayor Butt, I totally understand where you're coming from. I actually know someone who's been looking for housing for quite some time, and because they don't have that stable employment, they are not a good candidate for housing. And that's been really a challenge. So now it's like them and their 2 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment, which is, a struggle for what they can afford. And, that's something that's better than nothing. But I think there's a lot of people who can't even make that happen. And that was pulling a lot of strings, like putting down money ahead of time, things like that. And you have to really seek out the landlords who are willing to accept that. And I live in Berkeley, and I know with what rent control does, once a tenant's there for over 30 days, you can never get rid of them with rent control. So I do understand the hesitancy of landlords. Section 8 has been really good for me, particularly. I, as a landlord, really enjoy having a Section 8 tenant. Section 8 makes me whole every single month, whether or not my tenant pays. So, and they pay at market rate. So I do think that's something that we should be promoting more of, and really thinking about what subsidies already exist and promoting them to our community. Like Mayor Quinto said, they've done in El Cerrito to subsidize, to promote the program. But I really appreciate hearing what Contra Costa County is doing and all these wonderful services, especially in mental health. Supervisor Joya, I know that there has been quite a bit of focus around helping those with mental health issues. I see that time and time again with the unhoused. So I'm really glad that that's something that's being addressed as well. I just wanted to thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Joya, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple comments and then maybe ask Lavana and Christy if they wanted to, generally respond to comments. A couple things. One, regarding there is a project that's been going forward now for the last couple of years at the old and vacated Richmond Health Center next to the courts. And it's sort of a story in how challenging things are. The county's working with Eden Housing, which is a great nonprofit housing developer, and Community Housing Development Corporation of North Richmond, to build a very nice affordable housing project at the old health center, which will have, units for very low income as well, which means people who are previously homeless. In fact, I think it's important to note that the project in San Pablo is one, while it's dedicated to all very low income, previously unhoused people, I think part of the strategy that experts will say also is really important is embedding those units in larger affordable housing complexes, right? So you're not just putting formerly unhoused people in one project, right? So though this unit at the housing authority will, at the old health center will be, we'll have some formerly unhoused folks. So it is going through, I followed this process. It is going through the Richmond land use process. And Tom, for your note, the Richmond Design Review Committee wanted, not your planning commission, but your design review suggested some modifications to entrances that we all thought, okay, the project team thought, okay, we'll do. It had to do with moving some things around. The result of that was the need to go to the courts because there's an easement about access, and go to the courts, which are now operated by the state, and seek to get their approval on some easements. And of course, what did they want? They wanted a crap load of money. I'll say it that way. I was going to use another word, money, which is, I understand, to do some improvements that also benefited the courts, which then raises the cost of the project. So I talked to a judge and said, yeah, this is really unfortunate. It's within the state's control. The states control the courts. I'm talking about we can talk until our face is blue about the need for housing, which we all need to do, but it also comes to rolling up our sleeves, and the process is at the local level. Design review, in their power said, you need to move some things around. The courts say, well, if you're going to do that, you need our permission for this. We want money for you to do things. So the reality on the ground is things are complicated. So how do you fix that process, right? Do we need legislation on these types of affordable housing projects? We were several years ago, we were all sitting around North Richmond proud of a new project that is now occupied, the Heritage Point project in North Richmond that we worked on with CHDC. We've worked on that project for 10 to 15 years, and it cost us $700,000 per unit to build that project. We ain't solving our affordable housing crisis in California if it cost us $700,000 a unit, highly subsidized, lots of county money in that. And it took I was around from the beginning, 15 years to get it done. So I think it's one thing, there's a lot of, as all of you have said, there's a lot of things that need to get fixed. I've been involved in too many affordable housing projects that take years and years to develop. And this is why I think the state is passing laws to try to streamline the process. So these are the challenges. I mean, the real life challenges on that. So, and the other thing I'll say is, the mental health services, that's a key component in addition to the housing that others have mentioned, that a majority of the people out who are unhoused have some type of mental health or substance abuse issue, and often both. And many of them can't stay in housing or not ready for housing alone unless they have gone through mental health treatment. So I think that's something, we are really focused on as well in what is a very underfunded mental health system. So those are just some of the challenges. And Tom, as you know, a lot of the folks who were offered housing out on Ryden Road or offered like a hotel room or a place at the Brookside Shelter chose not to go there for varying reasons. Some of those reasons, not all, were the issue that they were often, because of their mental health situation they were in, just did not make that decision. And I just want to add, I know the governor has proposed these care courts in various counties to try to get more people into voluntary treatment. And I think that's really important as well. So I just wanted to add that. But thanks. I know, and I know we can't do this alone, even as Contra Costa in the cities. We need a lot more investment from the state and federal government.
Thank you, Supervisor Joya. I was looking at the numbers earlier this morning, and I know that real estate just in general went up by 30% since COVID started, and it's expected to go up another 16% in the Bay Area. So houses are getting more and more expensive. And the notion of affordable housing, it's something that would concern all of us. Then I would turn it to, I know you have to leave in 2 minutes. Thank you for being here again. I really appreciate it. I would turn it back to Mayor Quinto, and I would ask Christy and Lavona if they have any closing statement, and we'll move on to the next presentation. Mayor Quinto, then Christy and Lavona, and then we'll move on. Thank you, Supervisor Joya.
I just want to be brief on this because I know, we have some things we need to deal with, but I'm thinking about the folks at Ryden Road and knowing that just a short walk away at that empty lumber yard, 175 units were approved, that the city of Richmond and the city of El Cerrito approved and worked on together. But because of the political unwillingness of a certain group of Richmond council members who are the majority still, their NIMBYism is, I'm calling it what it is. It's NIMBYism. And that could have been built right away. And those folks at Ryden Road would be living in those 175 units of all affordable housing. So I want to make sure that our public knows that we have NIMBYs in city councils because they live in that district, or they're keeping their friends with a job forever in these nonprofits. This is not acceptable. And we need to build this affordable housing. I know it takes years. This would have been built because this was approved the same time our developments were approved in El Cerrito, and we have people living in them now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Quinto. Then I'll move on to a closing statement. If you have anything you would like to add, Ms. Saxton and Ms. Martin, please go ahead. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here.
I would love to just appreciate the conversation today. I think everyone who spoke today honestly summarized Christy and I's 40 years of collective experience, to be honest. And that's not to make light of that work. It is hard work, and it is a multi-pronged approach. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Everything that I heard was said today is true, and it takes a lot of brains. The state level, we need policies and legislation, right, changed or enacted. We need the federal government. We talk about subsidies. Absolutely, that's part of the picture too. And what do we need to do? That's a federal government, right? How do we get additional vouchers into our system so that we can support people? And then once we have them, that's not the final work. If HUD said, great, we will provide you, right, 700 vouchers today for the persons in West County who are experiencing homelessness, we couldn't find the land to take them, even with some programs that offer additional incentives, which we have in our system of care for landlords, but also the incentive payments to take the subsidy. It is difficult and it's challenging, along with the time it takes to build affordable housing. Supervisor Joya mentioned 10 years, right? That is a long time. So it's both and, appreciating the, $20,000 a year sort of subsidy that Mayor Butt mentioned. Yes. And when we're talking about 700,000 individuals just for 700 individuals for West County, we're talking about $14 million a year in perpetuity, right? And that's just for those today. That also doesn't mean those who are entering homelessness, right? So we have multiple things to think through, work on, including our nonprofit partners. I think we do a fairly good job of not duplicating the resources that we have for our nonprofit partners out there. And that doesn't mean that there isn't duplication of services, but we also know there still aren't enough services. So it's really, I just want to appreciate the conversation today, because I think what I heard was that the audience understands the complexity of this. And I just want to close by saying the county is in 100% full partnership with our cities to think about all of those various strategies to ensure that we are providing the best level of supports we possibly can, and to also continue to advocate and push at the state and federal level for some of those changes that you all have mentioned and we've been advocating for. So thank you for this conversation today, Christy.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that. The passion on the call is invigorating. There was an incredible story on the Chronicle this morning about single room occupancy hotels in the city of San Francisco. And before coming to this job, that was my most recent work as permanent supportive housing in the city. And I think why I was so eager to come to Contra Costa is this right here. This type of dialogue doesn't happen between, even though there is city and county, between providers, between county departments, between electeds. It's very different, because here, what I truly feel is collaboration and partnership. We all know we have a humanitarian crisis on our hands. And I think we also collectively know there is not one single solution. It is nuanced, it is multifaceted, and not one person is going to be able to do it on their own. So again, to just highlight what LaVonna said, it is a deep partnership that we need. And this call today proved to me once again that the commitment is there. I'm so happy to be in Contra Costa today. And I just really want to thank you all, everyone from, having Charla on the line and hearing from you, and Mayor Quinto, just as LaVonna was saying, just so you know, I'm working very hard to ensure there is no duplication, that there is accountability, and all of our providers that contract with us at the start of the new fiscal year, there's a new contracting process and accountability process. Just because I deeply believe that our providers want to do the best possible job as well. They don't want to duplicate services either. And so we're really putting some mechanisms in place to highlight that, be a little bit more transparent, and hold all of ourselves accountable. So a lot of what folks were talking about today, I'm excited because we're doing some work on each one of those areas. But again, it'll take all of us. And I just want to thank you all for your commitment to this work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you. I think we have a Vice Mayor of the City of El Cerrito, Hercules, who wants to add something. Is that correct?
Yes,
go ahead, sir.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I just kind of wanted to chime in from Hercules. I really like this presentation. This is my first time ever attending one of these meetings, and I did not expect it to be on something that I'd be so passionate about. And I would love to see some of this energy and some of this information get passed over here. I've lived in Hercules for 18 years, so literally since I was a 6-year-old kid, and now in 24. One of the challenges that we have here is that we do have a lot of NIMBYs, and we have a lot of people that you mentioned, more affordable housing, and suddenly the conversation turns into crime's going to increase. But what that conversation leaves out are people like my friends who don't have the opportunity to move back to the city that they grew up in. And we had a developer in town and they built an apartment complex talking about workforce housing. And as I was looking through the brackets that you needed to qualify for some of this housing, they were talking about police, firefighters. These are top tier salaries. These are not someone who's been a year, 2 years on the force. This is someone who's been on 5, 10 years. So even then you're pricing people out. So if there's any opportunities to collaborate here in Hercules, I don't necessarily mean to speak on behalf of the mayor, but I'm sure some of my colleagues would love to have a conversation about that because we don't have any nonprofits here in town that are focused on affordable housing. So we kind of are left in this little little bubble over here. We kind of have to be a little creative. But anyways, thank you again for the presentation. And I know that if I can help out, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation and thank you for being here this morning with us. And I know it's ongoing work and at least we are discussing about it in the first step. And I will move on to the next item right now, item 3B. Thank you again, everybody. See you soon. Item 3B, today we'll be discussing about Bastille Day and the French influence in the Bay Area. And you'll be surprised that actually the French people opened in the 1800s, the very first private hospital in the Bay Area. So it's something that I'm sure that a lot of you didn't know, but you will find out a little bit more today. And we have Mr. Georges Vieux with us today. He'll be making a presentation on Bastille Day and the French influence. And I believe I'm the first French mayor in the Bay Area. So I'm happy to see you today.
Thank you for welcoming me, Mayor Vincent.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, you get
Bonjour.
bonjour from the mayor of Richmond. Is that what it is, Mr. Pat? Bonjour.
I understood, and thank you for understanding. So for welcoming me, and just you will recognize my French accent during my presentation. And thank you also to invite me presenting this really not a new but a young event, Bastille Day in the Bay Area. And this event takes place in San Francisco at Embarcadero Plaza. You know, it's front of the ferry building. It's a famous place for a French community because it is the place where the train started, and the investor and the engineer who made this railroad was French. This event is open to everyone and organized mainly to attract American people who want to connect or reconnect with the French culture. Next slide, please. This French culture with sport, food, wines, music, and here are the two singers we usually have. They are members of a band and sung both American and French song during the event. Next slide, please. So we also have this kids garden because we want to welcome all the people, including the family with young kids. And as you can see, they are very good and ready for being soccer team members, maybe French, maybe American, the US, we will see. Next slide, please. So we restarted this event, Bastille Day, in 2017, and we made it in 2018 and 2019. Obviously, because of the COVID, we was not able to organize it in 20 and 21. But this year, 2022, we want to restart the event again because last time in 2019, we had 7,000 people who came during the event. It was a success for this kind of event. So next slide, please. Yes, and here it's a little bit about the history. Mayor Vincent Salimi told you about the French hospital starting in 1851. It is now the French campus of Kaiser on Gary Boulevard at San Francisco. But this hospital was really a huge project of the French community. And the second one was Bastille Day. And Bastille Day has been one of the biggest events in San Francisco in the past. It started in 1880. Every year, the event was on the front page of the newspapers. And there is a very close relationship between the French community and all the others community. French community was always open to the others. For the French hospital, for example, they welcome all the people, whatever the citizenship. And for Bastille Day, it's the idea is effectively also to welcome all the people. And this event, Bastille Day, took place in the past in San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, so all around the Bay Area. So next slide, please. So here is a part of the address of the mayor, James Phelan, in 1897. I let you read the text. I think you will understand better than if I read myself. Because of the values that this event Bastille Day conveys, we really appreciate your support to make it more and more popular, more and more popular. And I'm sure that, like Mayor Phelan expressed in the past, I'm sure that many of the people in responsibility in the Bay Area can have a strong, can see this event as a strong mean for gathering people and make all the community welcome together. Thank you for your attention, and I am open for the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Georges Vieux. And I would like to restate that when the hospital started with La Gauloise in 1800, which is at the existing location, we wanted to provide affordable healthcare to everybody who couldn't afford it. And at that moment, the monthly fee to get healthcare was $1 per month. And La Gauloise still exists and still has members as of today. And the fees to be part of it is still $1 per month, which is the fees as it used to be over almost 200 years ago. And this relationship between the French government, the French culture, and the American government has been very close for the last 200 years. The French Revolution started right closely after the American Revolution, and the importance of having the French community remembering where they are coming from and still being in the Bay Area is a challenge of many communities as we live here in the Bay Area. A lot of time we have the first degree generation who live in, brings their kids and exposed to the culture. And the second generation has a type of understanding of what their background used to be. And then third and fourth and fifth generation kind of forget where they're coming from. And the fact that we don't remember, we still remember where we come from, where we are going, and building that strong relationships. It's very, very important at the local level, but also at the international level. As you can see, the French election that happened just last weekend, and we could have had the far right movement moving forward. And fortunately, the Macron passed and won the election, but something would have happened that would have had very bad influences at local level in Europe, in Ukraine, in the Middle East. But this relationship that we have has to be strong, and I want to thank you and encourage you and encourage all the mayors here in West County to acknowledge that relationship that the United States and America and France have had for so many years and promote that culture, because we will all be stronger together. I'm going to ask you a few questions, but I would like to get it back to Mayor of the City of El Cerrito, Gabe Quinto. Please go ahead.
Rita Xavier raised her hand first. Let's
okay, thank you. I couldn't tell here, but Mayor of the City of San Pablo, Rita Xavier, please go ahead.
I would just like to state that I'm one quarter French. Father was from France. So I'm always following what happened is happening in France. I have a bunch of Facebook friends that I've never met that are French that live in France. And we are talking about, besides the flowers, the political situation in France. I just wanted to put that in there.
Sorry, go ahead. You wanted to talk about the political situation in France? I cannot hear you. I think you are muted.
Um,
Go ahead, please. Go ahead about the political situation in France.
I
You were
just
muted.
wanted, no, I just was wanting to state that I am one quarter French. I relate to everything French.
Thank you, Mayor Xavier. Mayor Quinto, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I had a memorable Bastille Day. It was one of the hottest days I've ever had there in France years ago. But no, I know a lot of the history, and as an El Cerrito resident, we have many French American residents here. I have some neighbors around the corner there from France, so a lot of folks working at UC Berkeley right now, who are working here in America, originally from France. My realtor is French, so I appreciate the history, and many folks have forgotten about Bastille Day. And but if you haven't gone there to visit yet, definitely visit there during Bastille Day. It's a great parade, and just like the 4th of July that we have here in America. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Thank you, Mayor Quinto. Do we have any member of the public who wants to talk?
Thank you, Mayor. It does not look like we have any public comments.
Okay. I have a few questions, Mr. Viewer. When is this event organized this year, please?
When?
When? Yes, because the 14th of July may not be on a weekend.
Yeah, sure. So what we the rule we try to follow is to organize the event on the second Saturday of July. But depending on the date, and just before, as it is expressed here, there is the 4th of July. So we don't want to compete with the Independence Day here. So when the second Saturday is too close to the 4th of July, we organize the 3rd. And this year, it will be the 3rd Saturday of July, so July the 16th.
So that'll be the 3rd Saturday, July the 16th. Okay, and okay, I'll note it on my. And what are the hours? It's from the morning
So,
to.
yes, it's open at 11.
Yes.
And it's closed at 6 p.m. So we are following the rules of the Rec and Park Department of San Francisco, and yes, we have this event. So we start with foods, with the bakeries, etc. And so there is some performances with dancers, singers, etc. And during the afternoon, obviously, everyone on place has all the time to eat, to take a lunch. There is many food vendors around the place. And the afternoon, we have this waiter race, typically Parisian race. We have a pétanque tournament. Pétanque is like a bocce ball, but it is pétanque. It's French. And what else do we have? These bands, and with this performance between 4 and 6 p.m. We have also the French consul coming for a quick speech at 4 p.m. And all the day, in fact, we have many small events, because there is booth from all the French American associations, organizations, cultural association, historical association, etc. And everyone is presenting something for the event.
Excellent, thank you. And the event has been ongoing since 18, you said 8, how long has it been ongoing?
Yes, so the event started in 1880, and
In San Francisco.
in San Francisco. It has been one of the biggest events in the city, and it stopped to be a public event in 1940 because of the World War II. Because in France, the government at this time was close to the Nazis and declined to organize Bastille Day. So he even forbid to organize Bastille Day everywhere in the world. But at San Francisco, people wanted to continue organizing this event, but there is less people around. It was very significantly more difficult to be organized. So the last large public event of Bastille Day in the 20th century was in 1940, and it took place at Treasure Island. And after this date, the French committee tried to reorganize a public event, and finally we was able to do that in 2017. So from 2017, we have this festival public event open to everyone at San Francisco.
And this event is privately funded, correct? There's no specific organization?
Yes. We ask the French organization to support us. We ask people, individual, to support us. The budget of the event is around $70,000, even a little bit more this year because all the prices increased. We saw that recently. And yes, we always need. We are not old enough with this event to be able to have all the finance needed to organize this event. So every year we are searching for donations, funding, etc.
And this is a non-profit organization?
Yes, 501c3 from the beginning, and all the donation are for a non-profit organization.
And we have your contact information, correct?
Of course.
If somebody wants to have more information and help
Yeah.
you out, the contact information of Mr. Georges will be shared with all those mayors.
Okay.
But I think what I will do in the city of Pinot, I will do a proclamation for Bastille Day this year. And if any other mayors here in the Bay, in the West County wants to do a proclamation for 14th
Yes, and
Bastille Day, I think that will be something that can promote that strong relationship that the French government has had with the American culture.
yes, promoting the event is certainly a key point for us because we need to make this event more and more popular for everyone. And even if the mayors want to come to the event, we can welcome you, and even it's an opportunity for you to present your city, to present yourself, to present your activities, etc. So
and that's great, Mayor. But last time when I was with you at one of a meeting, you said somebody asked you a question about your retirement, and you said, "What are you going to do after retiring?" You said you want to move to the city of Pinot. Why don't you just move with me to the city in France and have some event at the French on the 14th of July before you come here in Pinot? That'll be a great event to have you joining us at on July the 16th to celebrate the 14 Juillet. So as well as Mayor Quinto and Xavier and all the mayors. And if you can just promote that event personally as part of your mayor's report at your next city council meeting, I would appreciate it. And if you want Mr. George Vieux to make a presentation, he'd be more than happy. And then financially, I will contribute personally to helping you into making that event
thank you so much
specific. So I can share contact information of all the mayors, and you can reach out to them individually and see what we can do. Thank you. Do you have any other comments or questions here? None? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Georges.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you again. That concludes item 3B. Bon courage. Et merci encore d'être revenu. Merci beaucoup. That concludes item 3B, and then move on to item 4, which is general business. Approval of the minutes of March 24, 2022. Can you please have a motion on that item? Mayor Quinto, and a second.
Second.
Mayor Xavier. Roll call,
Yeah.
Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Salimi,
Yes.
uh, Vice Mayor Griffin,
Aye.
Mayor Quinto,
Yes.
Mayor Xavier,
Aye.
Mayor Butt.
Yes.
And I'll note for the record that the two supervisors are not present. Motion carries. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Next item on will be item 5, item for future meetings. Do we we have how many more meetings the city of Pinot is hosting? Next month will be the last one, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. So what do you have scheduled for next month, please?
We're working on scheduling the items that have been requested. For the next meeting, we're working on a transportation presentation. The other ones that we were requested at the last meeting, we had Mayor Quinto requested a joint presentation of MCE and Republic Services on green hydrogen. We also had a request from Mayor Butt regarding Caltrans presenting specifically to the homelessness issue. So we have those, and any topics that don't get scheduled for our rotation because we have 2 meetings left would then just carry over to the next rotation. And I admit I'll have to look and see which city is following us. We haven't done this in person for a while, so I will take a look and report back.
Okay, excellent. So we'll find out, you will get back to us which city will be taking over after the city of Pinot. Okay.
That's correct. Thank you.
So we are already scheduled for next month and we have other items. Any other items that need to be raised at this moment by any mayors? No. And I know that Mayor Quinto was at Washington, DC with MC, so we look forward soon to hear back from him. And then I will move on to next item, item number 6, which is mayors and supervisors time and mayors conference items. Do we have any item on that item? Mayor Quinto, please go ahead.
Yeah, briefly, I just want to mention that I was with MCE, Marine Clean Energy's legal and policy team, along with Pinot Mayor Pro Tem Devin Murphy, and we were in Capitol Hill yesterday and the day before, and we did speak to our Congress people who represent the MCE area. So it was a great meeting with all of them, including Department of Transportation and Department of Energy, meeting with Senator Feinstein's staff and Senator Padilla's staff. So I believe it was a successful meeting the last 2 days, and we did have some 3 asks. One was supporting our energy storage program, and the other one is to request money, about $2 million for to add on to our vehicle, our EV charging stations that are we have a lack of them, except for Mayor Tom's city of Richmond that has more chargers than Berkeley and all the rest of the cities in Contra Costa County. So well done, Mayor, but the other cities, smaller cities, we don't have any of that. So I wanted to make sure that we work on parity so the small cities will have the opportunity to have EV chargers and we can come changing over to EVs, and this will help in our shopping areas, our transportation hubs, and all our small cities lack the infrastructure on that. So supporting that, our congressmen that we spoke to all support that. They also support what Mayor Pro Tem Devin Murphy, his ask was on the Healthy Homes Project, and that is I'll have him explain that to your city council in the future, but that is to help with communities of color that have difficulties in improving the energy efficiency in their homes and apartments. So that will definitely help, especially in our West County cities. So a good meeting, and I hope we look forward to having meetings with folks in Capitol Hill on a yearly or twice a year basis. We have to compete with all the other cities and agencies. So glad that we're stepping up and doing this here in Marine Clean Energy. Tom Butt is the chair of Marine Clean Energy, and So all of our cities are participating in Contra Costa, except for Hercules. And I look forward for Hercules to join Marin Clean Energy, as well as the city of, I believe it's Antioch or Pittsburgh, and Antioch is one of the other cities, as well as the city of Orinda. But all the other cities in Contra Costa are part of MCE. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Quinto, and thank you for representing all of us in Washington, DC. That concludes item number 6, and I will move on to item number 7, which is the adjournment, and I would adjourn it to Thursday, May 26 at 8:30, and it will be here in person in the city of Pinal. Please come in person, join us for a free breakfast and a great meeting. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.